Did you know that when parents are asked what they would do if they had 1 extra hour every day, most parents say they would use it for sleep? Are you exhausted trying to balance kids, work, and play? Do you want more purpose and less monotony in your life? Do you get overly irritated, frustrated, and angry with your children? If you've answered yes to some of these questions, then I'm glad you're here. I know how busy you are, and I'm not here to take your time. I'm here to help you take it back. Close your windows, open your mind, and let's kick some ass. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about money. You have a great perspective. Money. You have a great perspective because when I went and hiked the Appalachian Trail and I started to go on my spiritual journey and I started to read, I started reading Tao Te Ching, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, and I really was searching for something. And I thought that based on all these texts, it said, get rid of all your worldly possessions, get rid of all this stuff, and then do it. And I'm glad I did it because I know that I can survive. I was 80 miles of the trail I did with nothing on my back, no shirt, and no shoes either. I did 80 miles barefoot just for fun, just to see if I could. But it was good for me. Like it got rid of everything and I knew I could survive. Now, coming back to modern society, I noticed that why not bring the wealth in so you can do more good in the world? And you kind of showed me a lot of that. So a lot of people have this money is scuzzy mentality. How do you help people make that shift?
Well, I mean, the money conversation is an interesting one in so many ways. But there's different personalities with money. You've got your spenders, you've got your savers, you've got your money monks, which would be the guy you're talking about, the one who thinks it's scuzzy, and your avoiders. And typically avoiders, by the way, I'm a bit of an avoider, which means that you don't even open your mail. You don't even know where the mailbox is, right? So there are sort of specific money personalities that sort of govern sort of behavior. But the fact is, a lot of people do get into this. I can be happy or I can be rich, and I can be loving or I can be rich. You can't be both. And the truth is, you can be both. And what I talked about earlier about this sort of creating a magnetism and an understanding of how we're programmed, because your program around money, right, typically is coming from who? Your parents, teachers, right, the media, your social group, right? And they say you become the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you're hanging around with people who are earning $30,000 a year, I guarantee that your income is going to be within 10 or 15% of those 5 people, all right? So money is an interesting thing, but it's a reprogramming that we have to do. We have to understand our money mindset, our money blueprint. And the blueprint is how we think, feel, and act about anything. So our relationship blueprint is how we think about it, how we feel about it, and how we act about it. Our parenting blueprint, think, feel, and act. Our money blueprint, how do we think about money? How do we feel about money? How do we act about money? That's the blueprint. And then look, our actions create our results. But what starts the thinking is the environment. And so most of us have been taught how to think about money by broke people, right? Teachers make 60 grand a year or 50 grand a year, right? They're one paycheck away. Not all teachers, but a lot of teachers struggle. I have friends who are teachers, and they struggle month to month, right? And those are the primary influences on our children. So our children are being taught to think about money by broke people. And quite often, broke, unhappy people who don't even like their jobs, right? Or we have this heritage. I mean, look, think about my father was influenced by the Great Depression, right? And by the wars. And so we got mindsets that are being passed from generation to generation, and we've never questioned it. And I'll give you an exercise, everyone listening in. I want you to think about your last 10 years of income. And if you're younger than that, do 5 years, or if you just started out, I don't care how long you've been, but think your last 2 years. But for those of you that have been employed for 10 years or more, think about your last 10 years income. And really get that number. What's your average income? So you may have had a bumper year of 400,000, you may have, or 40,000, you may have had a bad year of 20,000. So you're going to look at all 10 years, average it out, and you say, well, on average I make $30,000 a year, or on average I make 50 or 100 or 150, right? Okay? And then I want you to think of that as a bubble over your head. So a big bubble right over your head. That's your number. That's the number that you're going to trade your time for. And you're never going to question it unless you start doing some work on it. And I didn't know this, right? Because when I came to Canada, I was working for $4 an hour as a waiter, right? to think that I can't even tell you, I could tell you how much I make, but I made millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars, but I couldn't have made it with that $4 an hour mentality. I had to reprogram how I thought about money, how I felt about money, how I acted around money to create the results in my life of complete financial freedom and financial success, right? However, so you got this number over your head, right? So let's say it's 40. So, let's say it's 50. And for money monks that you're talking about, people who think it's really scuzzy, some of them it's really low. It can be 20,000 because they've learned to live with nothing. You didn't wear shoes for 800 miles. But let's just say that there's people out there. There's the number, and they did a study in the USA Today, and they put two identical ads in the paper, looking for the same job. Same benefits, that the ad was identical in every single way except what you got paid. One was $18,000 a year. The other was $120,000 a year. Identical jobs, identical requirements, identical benefits, identical everything apart from the money. Do you know that 80% of the people responded to the lower number ad? Because their RAS, or the RAS, the reticular activating system you just talked about, is programmed to look for things that are 18, 20,000. That's my number. Well, they won't even notice, and that's the study will show. They can't see the other ad because their brain. There's so much stuff coming at you all the time. 400 billion bits of information every second. The RAS has to continually sort through it to say, oh, so you're an $18,000 a year person. Okay, here's your ad. And somebody else is like, hey, I'm 120. They see the ad. And that's how crazy it is. So the question is to challenge that number. And for a lot of us, there's some work involved in that. But you can start by reading a couple of great books, The Millionaire Mind, The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind with Harv Eker. I worked with Harv for 3 years. And that's a great starting place. Or Rich Dad, Poor Dad with Robert Kiyosaki is another great book to read along that line. But there's many, many books that you can read and start to say, oh, there is a better way. And as soon as I reprogram myself financially, I was able to attract and achieve from $4 an hour and to having this sort of possibility to make, really, I made $700,000 in one day. That sounds crazy for this kid who dropped out of school and backpacked around the world, but I had to really understand how I was programmed and make those shifts. And I think even just understanding this conversation, but I'll challenge each one of you right now. Imagine that you add 1 0 to your number. So if you're 30,000, now it's 300,000. So who do you have to be? What do you have to do? What kind of actions do you have to take? How do you have to think to make 300,000? Because it doesn't take any more work. To make $300,000, I don't have to work any harder if I make it now, or if I'm making $1 million a year. My output is no different from a woman who's going to, or a guy who's going to work 9-10 hours and commuting. There is, in fact, I would say that a lot of people who make a lot of money don't work as hard as the people who are making $30,000 a year. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I'd like to put an exclamation point on that, especially the point where you said, if I'm focused on my actions before my being, because you said, and I want to point this out to my listeners, what you said was, what do I have to be, then what do I have to feel, and then what do I have to do? So you said starting with being. Why is it so important to start with who I'm being?
Well, it's like everything we've said, taking 100% responsibility and understanding that the world will treat us as we treat the world. And I can give you numerous examples. The Secret. Did you see The Secret? Did you ever watch The Secret? I work with a lot of those guys. They're friends of mine, and I actually belong to a group where all these guys. That's where it was shot. The Secret was shot at the group that I belong to, right? But I remember this was so funny when I started to really believe in who I was, and when I started to have this love affair with my imperfection, and that's a really important thing to do. I'm not talking about I love myself, but loving my imperfection is the hard bit. It's not. Loving what I'm good at, that's easy. But loving the crappy bits, loving the mistakes, loving the times I've yelled at my kids, loving them, everything that I've done that maybe I'm not proud of. That's the stuff I have to fall in love with and give myself a chance to take a bigger step, right? But I remember one day thinking, you know what? I want to become friends with Jack Canfield because I knew that he's one of the top authors in the world. I kind of like what he did, and I didn't even know when I was really clear on this. This is going to sound a little woo-woo again, right? But within 3 months, I was in his house, and within another 2 months after that, he became a business partner and bought a business with me. And the only difference was that I said, hey, I'm going to make this happen. I didn't even know how I was going to make it happen. The how doesn't matter. But I was certain. I was being, and I knew that the way I am as a human being, if I'm around someone like Jack, right, then the attraction will occur. Because Jack's attracted to positive, goal-oriented, fun, and he's really attracted to fun. He loves joke telling, and I love telling jokes, so we have a match made in heaven right there, right? So, but the idea is, if I was kind of insecure about who I was, if I didn't step into my greatest self, when I was around someone like Jack, the relationship can occur, right? The energy difference is so vast, right? So I have to be the change. Gandhi said this, and Gandhi was be the change you want to see in the world. So act and be, pretend. It doesn't matter. Imagine every goal, write down some goals for the next 5 years, and then today walk out the house and act as if it's already happened. Act as if the book was published, that you were just on Oprah, whatever your dreams are, whether you just act differently. And when you walk out, there's going to be a swagger, not a cocky swagger. There's going to be this feeling of accomplishment, which means your energy will raise right up. And there's a thing called entrainment. When we vibrate at a certain energy, right? And an example of entrainment would be women living in the same house, whose often their cycles end up becoming the same. So you have 3 or 4 women living in the same house. Suddenly they all have their period on the same week, right? Or they say, you can put 2 watches side by side, and they can be out. The second hand could be out, and if you leave them there for 24 hours, they will actually end up coming in alignment. They will entrain each other. So there's this thing called entrainment. And when we have our energy at a certain level, let's say there's a level 10 energy, then anything that's a level 10 energy will come to us, will be attracted and entrained to us. But who's responsible for the energy? Me. So if you're having crappy thoughts, you're having crappy feelings and taking crappy actions, don't expect great things to be attracted to that energy. So you first have to be a 10. Even if you're not convinced, just act it out in the beginning. See what does it feel like? If every dream that you ever dreamed came true, what would you sound like? What kind of conversations would you be having? How would you show up in the world? And when you start showing up like that, that's what comes first. Then all the good stuff can come towards you because you will entrain it towards you. Does that sound that's a little woo?
Well, it doesn't sound woo to me because I've had personal experience with it because I took your advice and I actually did that. And so I have a kind of a vision here. So like in the old days, it was work hard, and you'll get what you deserve, right? That was the
job, work hard, get a job, work hard,
do hard, right? And then so we go from the industrial age to the innovation age. And so in the innovation age, it's work smart, right? Multitask, do all these different things, and then you'll get more accomplished. And then so what you're saying and what I'm saying is, screw that, turn up the vibration. Turn up the amount of energy and positivity and affirmation that you have in your life, and then you'll attract those people. So I made the same affirmation with you, David, and I made the same affirmation with myself with Jack Canfield. I said, I'm going to meet these guys. I'm going to know these guys. These guys are important, and I like what they're doing. And so here I am talking to you today, right? So that's an affirmation of my affirmation. And then I just happened to, I'm working with another woman, Amy Alcini, who lives out in California, and she came on the show, incredibly amazing woman, and we're working on a book together. She's going to a conference that she just happens to have a guest spot for, then she invites me to go, and guess who's going to be there? Jack Canfield.
Yes.
Right.
But that's how it happened. That's as easy as it happened. And that's where it gets weird. I mean, and again, but what we have to be careful with sometimes, like the word vibration for some people can make you feel it's woo-woo. But however, let's call it something else then. Change the name of vibration, call it energy. Call it personal responsibility. Call it what the heck you want, but don't get mixed up with, oh, that's all woo-woo. No, it works, and it works for anyone, any single person that believes. So first you have to believe. People say, I'll believe it when I see it. You will see it once you believe it. You have to believe first. You have to believe first before you. None of this stuff's going to happen for you. And again, it's fascinating because you will continually be challenged. We're talking about money blueprints, and we're talking about how we're wired. See, when we look at the lottery, I'll give you another example. Lottery, great. Someone wins the lottery. The studies show this, that about 84% of everyone who wins the lottery within 2 years are worse off and unhappier than they were when they won the lottery. So we know getting a big windfall, unless you've already trained yourself, is not going to make you any happier. You think it will, but it won't. So there's not this easy road there, all right? So actually, and some people who won the lottery will actually say, I wish I'd never won it. right? Because I lost friends, because, suddenly people were calling me all the time. I didn't trust anyone because they hadn't grown themselves. So that isn't the answer. But to have, let's say you want to win your own personal lottery, then there's only a few certain principles, but being a really beautiful, kind person and being present in your body and having the courage to go first and believing, and knowing exactly what you want. Write a script for 5 years for today, what your life's going to look like. And then act that way from today, as if it's already happened, and watch what happens. You will, like you're doing. That's exactly what you're doing with your show, right? And I guarantee you and Jack will become great friends.
Yeah, and that's kind of the beauty of it. And I think that having a big why, right? You have this big, powerful why, and that gets you, that sustains you. Because a lot of people make small goals and they have small dreams, and then so their why is not big enough, so they just don't have the energy. They don't create enough energy to get to it. So I did exactly what you said. I created a mission statement. This is what my passion is. This is what my dreams are. I have a BHAG. My listeners know what my BHAG is, my big, hairy, audacious goal. And it's to create community centers that revolve around sustainable agriculture, community gardens, teaching kids about music, dance, the arts, incorporating sports, cutting edge technology, education, teaching parents how to be better parents, to create a virtual renaissance in the American cities and around the world. And that's my BHAG. So that's why I'm out there doing community gardens. That's why I'm out here doing this podcast. That's why I'm taking the steps to get in places where I'm uncomfortable, because it gets me closer to my big why. So, and I hear you talk about, in your show, you feel like you're being called to something greater. So what's your BHAG, David?
Well, the Kick-Ass Life, my show, what's really interesting is it woke in me something, because I've become very successful over the last few years, and been fortunate to train a few 100,000 people. And and I can't tell you what it feels like when you're on purpose and you're doing exactly what you love to do. And it's a stunning way to live. It's a beautiful way to live, right? And so for me, the revelation is to create a movement of transformation where the Kick-Ass Life practitioners, or the Kick-Ass Life philosophies, and they're very, very much in alignment with yourself, and sort of like you said, the Kick-Ass Life has had an impact on you to live your passion and purpose. And that would be the thing for the Kick-Ass Life, is to awaken everyone, whether it's a virtual renaissance, which I love how you described that, this virtual renaissance and these community gardens, or it doesn't matter what it is, but each person wakes up and realizes that there's definitely a choice to start living into a kick-ass life, which is going to have an immediate impact on every single person in your sphere of influence. Because as we step into the greater part of ourselves, we have an impact, because we're either going to affect people or we're going to infect them. And most people go through life infecting them with their lack of presence, with their lack of openness and their lack of connection. There's so much fear that they won't even engage. You walk down the street, I say hello to every single person I walk past. And I can tell you how many people are just sort of lost in this oblivious world of running here and running there and sort of feeling empty-hearted. But if I could wake up people like you that want to step into something greater and live a kick-ass life where we can come together and all these dreams can manifest in such a great way, because like I can have your back. I can put you with Jack. I mean, Jack and I are close friends. No problem. What's wrong with that? But as more and more people wake up, then this kick-ass life will impact someone's home, which will impact their children, which will end up impacting the schools, which will end up impacting their community centers, their churches, their synagogues, their temples. And that's what I want. I want to wake people up. And through this kick-ass, which kick-ass is kind of edgy. And it is edgy. Life is freaking edgy, right? It's not all rainbows, right? But we got to be tough, but we've got to be caring. It's range. It's all about personal range. So I think it's a global movement of transformation where we can unlock human potential with every single person that is touched by what we do, right?
Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right, and I think it's absolutely possible. In fact, I think we've gone from the point where it's impossible to the point where it's improbable to the point where it's inevitable.
I keep wanting to play music. Can you hear music? Can you hear this? Can you hear that? Oh yeah, here we go.
That was awesome.
I love Pink Floyd. I'll turn it off.
I have to start incorporating that into my show, and it needs more music, needs more dancing.
Yeah, more dancing.
I like how you said.
What's your favorite music? What kind of music do you love?
I love all kind. I'm actually a musician myself. I play guitar. I sing. I write music. So I do all that kind of stuff. But I'm a folk kind of guy. I like Dylan. I like the Stones. I like I like that kind of that old school stuff. And then
How old are you? How old are you?
34.
34. You're looking good. You're a young one. So Bob Dylan.
Oh, I'm a huge Dylan fan.
Yeah.
He was like the poet, man. I'm.
He was the poet of a generation. What he was doing back then is what we're attempting to do right now.
Yeah, and we actually have an opportunity to do it because we have the connection now. I couldn't talk to you, Dylan. I couldn't be in the '60s and talk to you in Canada, but we have this opportunity for like global connection now, and it's just like the possibilities are.
Well, remember what Dylan said though. I mean, imagine you young punks out there listening in right now, right? That Dylan was saying the same message we're saying now. Listen to it. Here we go. Ready? Listen to this.
And don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin. And there's no telling who that it's naming. Was the loser now will be later to win.
Because the
Times they are a changing.
There you go. And that's what we feel. And that's what Dylan was talking about in the 60s. He was doing the same stuff through his music, right? You know what you should do? Instead of having music, you should bring your guitar and sing live. That would be awesome.
That's a good idea. I think I'll take that into consideration. And here's the other thing, David, is that we're getting to a point where we can attain these experiences and we can touch this kind of spiritual realm without the need for I used to have to go to LSD and mushrooms to get where I can now go without. And that's kind of cool.
With a few mushrooms, though. We shouldn't leave them out completely.
Yeah, I'm not hating. That's natural. That's natural.
I thought you like community gardens.
I do. Yes.
Yeah. So that's awesome. And I want to play one last song for you because your other favorite band you mentioned. You guys have to know he's dancing. He's dancing.
I am not, and that's funny because I was always the guy. Like I was a really shy kid, but I was the guy. Once I got a little older and realized that like society is it's like blowing my brains out. Like I can't understand why everybody's so normal. It was like making me crazy. So I just got real crazy, and then I went into the culture, and then I hit every dance floor, in college. Like I was the first one out there, and I just was like, you know what? I don't give a shit anymore.
Oh, absolutely. But that, again, living without, most of us are looking for the approval of others without self-approval. And, for me, that's the whole idea of self-love, and self-worth. You think that of the 200,000 students I've trained, I would say that the number one issue that every single one of them are facing is self-worth, is really being able to look in the mirror and like you said, to really truly love what you see within the imperfection. I did a show with Lisa Nichols. It's one of my early shows. If someone wants to listen to it, she does this exercise, this daily exercise, a mirror exercise that helped her go from an impoverished mother, raising single mother in a really, really poor neighborhood to becoming one of the global faces, a star of The Secret. She travels the world right now. And she actually attributes this mirror exercise to that. So if someone wants to find it, go to thekickasslife.com, look up Lisa Nichols and listen to that show. It's a phenomenal practice. So.
Yeah, and so how else?
That was a slide plug, wasn't that a slide plug?
Well, I was gonna add one for you. I love your segue. Can I add? Can you? I was gonna ask you to please go ahead and how else can we find you, David? And I had like this whole like list of questions. I don't even know why I write questions anymore because it's just like pointless because I just have so much fun on my interviews that it all just comes naturally. So.
I must admit with mine, I never write questions, and I find someone with your personality. Probably what ends up happening is without the pre-written questions. Obviously it's good to know something about anyone, but what I tend to do on my show is I tend to ask two questions before we go live. And one is, hey, is there anything you don't want to talk about? Because there's some, I could go anywhere, but I don't want to embarrass someone. I don't need to. It's not that kind of show. And is that, where do you want to end up? Where would you like the show to go? So I have those two things. Okay, we're not going there. And everyone says, there's nothing. I think only one person asked me not to talk about their what is it? It was a goofy guy anyway, but he said something. There was one thing, but typically it's where they want to go, and then it's just really jumping back into a relationship. And I mean, your style is so warm and it's engaging and it's born in a real life experience. So you're so relatable to the questions you ask are deeply relatable to who you are as a man and what you want to do in the world. So I think you do a beautiful job. So I've been interviewed a lot, and you're certainly a master. So
Thank you. What do I owe you for that?
that's $200, like I said. Now, you didn't get the text that said if I say nice things, it's $200. You didn't get that?
No, you didn't need to miss that.
All right, you
Yeah.
get the bill. Don't worry.
Yeah. So real quick, any other ways we can find you, David?
Well, I think just go to the kickasslife.com. You can find me on Facebook as well, the Kickass Life podcast with David Wood. But I have a couple of pages there, but that one is good. And we should get you on the show as well and talk about what you're doing. I'd love to have you on and talk about these projects around community gardens. I think that gated community idea. I can just feel the power of what that's going to do within your gated community. And then when you start adding the subliminal socialization that occurs already when people are out there just chatting, building deeper relationships and working toward one goal, I think it's a really powerful model. So
Beautiful. I'd love to do your show, and then we're going to do a documentary on it as well. So my listeners should keep an eye out for that. We're going to do an entire documentary and teach people exactly how I did it and how they can do it too.
Awesome. And listen. If you want a song request before we go, I could also do that for you.
Hit me. You got anything? You got any Beatles right there?
Oh, Beatles. Which is do you have a favorite one?
Not necessarily. I'm Strawberry Fields. You got that right there?
Strawberry Fields. I could probably get there pretty fast. Obviously, I'm not a. I should probably. I tell you what I'll have to do. I'll do this one because I can't. Here you go. Here's one for you. You know why?
Nothing but love, babe. I grew up on this stuff.
Just for you. I just down.
'Cause I'm going to. David, I love you, man.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Hey, can you hang on offline just for one quick second? Thank you.
What's that?
Can you hold on one offline? I'm gonna keep you offline. Thank you so much
Sure,
to our listeners,
sure.
and
Yeah.
love you guys, and I'll